My son is nearly 5 years old, and I can say that he's never eaten a proper meal as we know it. And I just want to sort of acknowledge how difficult, emotionally difficult and worrying food refusal can be for all parents. I've been there. My son, he had milk throughout his early years. We started the weaning process and he dealt well with that, and then when we started to go on to real solids, he started refusing foods. And as he got older, we noticed that now, 4 years later, he has an extremely restricted food diet, to a point where I can count on one hand the amount of foods that he eats. And it's so worrying that even when he was going to nursery, I used to sort of like ashamedly sort of whisper to the teachers that, my son doesn't eat, and they'll look at me quite strangely, and then I'll just explain that, okay, well, this month he's fascinated with custard cream biscuits, and that's all he'll sort of consume. Or lately it's wheat biscuits that he'll have with hot milk and a little bit of honey, and sometimes he'll have that 3 or 4 times a day. And I'm just being honest and raw with you that there isn't anything wrong with that. And one advice that someone gave me when I was explaining that my son wouldn't eat a meal, they said to me, something is better than nothing. All food is good. And I would contact like the health services, like, what can I do with my son? He won't eat, he won't even go near, I don't know, mashed potatoes or some fruit or some vegetables. He just wouldn't go near it. And actually the health advisor sort of said to me, well, okay, if he's just wanting the beige kind of browny foods, then give that to him. If he's having wheat biscuits and hot milk and a bit of honey, they would say, well, actually, Karina, that's 3 meals. He's having, the carbs, he's having the milk, which is the dairy. And yes, honey's not great, but he's having a little bit of sweetness there. And when now he goes for his health reviews, he's within normal range of a child of his age. So I've just learned not to stress so much about it. Although when we do go out as a family on the rare occasions that, it's a beautiful day and we may wish to just spend the day at the seaside or go to the park or do something, I do panic and I think, okay, what's my son going to eat for the whole day? So I would need to prepare for that day. I would bring his warm milk in a thermal flask. I will bring his wheat biscuits, or in the morning I'll make him porridge. He loves porridge now. So I'll bake him some porridge and I'll put it in a food flask, and then I'll carry some biscuits because, he may sort of nibble on some biscuits, and he likes like the diluted squash that you can get. So I would just make sure that he had that if he was ever hungry. And it just so happens that when we're out and we're having a great time, he's not so concentrated on, having like his heavy, stodgy wheat biscuits 3 or 4 times a day or his porridges. He's just busy enjoying himself, and I just make sure that he's well hydrated. Now, food aversion, as I call it, could happen for a couple of reasons. It could be sensory sensitivities. I know when I was giving my son different types of food, so I learned to sort of, take him when I could to the supermarket and show him the foods, and maybe give him an opportunity to go around and to feel them and to pick what he would like. And I would go home and maybe, okay, we're going to try maybe rice pudding or some mashed potato or some fruit or some vegetables. And I would just maybe create like a mini buffet for him and leave it for him to kind of choose and decide what he would want. That didn't work so much for him because sometimes he'll get in a state where he couldn't even look at a particular type of food. You know, if it was a strawberry, you know, the bright, beautiful red colour of a strawberry, his face would turn and he wouldn't go anywhere near it. Or if I was eating something, I don't know, maybe chicken, and he would come towards me and he would try to touch it, and then again his face would turn. So the interest is there, he's piquing his interest, but he just couldn't go towards it. It could be the colour, it could be, you know, the texture, or just the look of it. It could also happen because of just anxiety, you know, or communication difficulties. As you would know, my son is non-verbal, and although he's having the therapies, the private speech and language therapies at the moment, communication or verbal language is still a major difficulty there. But, you know, he's happy. You know, I give him choices. He can try whatever we're eating. Nothing is refused. If he wants to, you know, come to me and use his hands and play in my food, I give him that opportunity. It's never a no. Nothing is refused. He can try what he wants. He has access to the food cupboards. I leave them particularly low down. And what I've noticed is he knows where his food kept, where his snacks are. And that helps also with the communication, because he may go into the cupboard, take out biscuit, or he may take out his wheat biscuits and bring it to me. And that's him leading the conversation. So I'm like, right, okay, you're hungry now, sweetie, let's give you something to eat. Or would you like something else with that? You know, I'm speaking to him whilst he's showing me what he wants. Now, what not to do, and remember, I've been there, try not to force feed your child. That is the worst thing that you can do. You know, you don't want to give them any sort of anxieties around food. We all need food, and food is wonderful. It nourishes us. But as long as your child is eating something, just something, it is better than nothing. So offer them a variety of food groups. Offer them something. If they don't want it, just leave them. And that took me years to understand. You know, my eldest is early 20s. And from whenever she was born, we would always sort of sit around the table. And now with like the 3 children, I want to sort of have and create that atmosphere where we cook a meal, we sit around the table and we eat together. But actually, we've had to adapt our meal times and how we sort of liaise and communicate and eat as a family. So my son may not sit around the table. You know, he's got a booster seat. He won't sit in there for long. Absolutely not. I'll be lucky if he sits in one place for the duration of one meal. He needs the movement, and I'm fine with that. You know, why am I giving myself additional pressures and additional anxieties and relaying that onto my son for absolutely no reason? I don't feel the need to turn meal times into a battle. There's so much more going on. I choose my battles with him, and I'm not going to pressure him. I'm not going to force him. If he wants it, he wants it. If he doesn't, he doesn't. It may mean that there's a lot of food wastage. You know, it is what it is. You know, if he gives me something, he may have, I don't know, 2 or 3 spoonfuls, and that's enough. And he tells me that's enough by sort of holding up his hand, then that is it. You know, I may decide to offer him maybe a couple of minutes later, but if it has to be thrown away, then it has to be thrown away. Things that have helped just to calm things at home and around meal times is just to offer small portions, not to overwhelm him with so much food. And again, just to offer him, I suppose, his safe foods alongside new ones, you know, and again, that's just giving him choice and variety. Visual schedules, and I think this is really underrated, that just having a visual schedule in place and maybe social stories for meal times can also help. It just prepares your child for what's to come. And also just letting my son explore food. You know, I have no expectations of eating. I know he's going to have something. You know, as I said, if he wants to play in my food, he can play in my food. The other children don't appreciate that too much, but I'm just happy that he's just trying to explore it. And I'm not so paranoid about trying to keep his space clean or my kitchen table clean. If food goes all over him, in his hair, on his clothes, on the floor, that's absolutely fine too. So when do you need to seek help from, you know, a paediatrician, a dietitian, an occupational therapist maybe? If you think that even when you've tried these little things, nothing seems to be working, reach out for help. Don't delay. Speak to a paediatrician if you have access to one, a dietitian, an occupational therapist. Go to your general practitioner or your doctor. You know, seek help for sensory issues. My final bit of encouragement is that progress can be slow, but just continue with consistency, and support will help over time. Now, if this sort of rings a bell to you, you can book a call with me, we can have a discussion and we can have a conversation about whether I'll be a great fit for your family. The link is in the description below. What are your experiences of food aversions? What tips have you used that are helpful? I'd love to hear from you. Please leave a comment and also like and subscribe to this channel.